So we have this fascination with Boo Radley, and Dill is just not going to let go of this. He wants Boo Radley to come out, and there's a big disagreement between Jem, Dill, and Scout about what they're going to do. And actually, what happens is Dill, he works on Jem's sense of honor and his him being an older boy and everything. He tells Jem that he's just too scared, and he makes it bigger than that. He says, in fact, he thinks all the people in Macomb County are much more scared. They're scaredy cats, and the folks in Meridian are not as afraid as the people in Macomb. So Jem feels now he has to defend himself, and he goes and just straight to the corner, and he hangs out in the same light pole where Dill hangs out, which is within a distance, not a safe distance of the Radley place. And eventually there's a dare that goes on about going to touch the doorpost of the Radley place. Okay, so first of all they talk about striking a match under him, but they decide they're not going to do that, and they're going to just run over to the Radley place, and Jem obviously is going to do it because he's like the oldest and everything, and he runs over, and then he threw open the gate, sped to the side of the house, slapped it with his palm, and ran back to us. And then as soon as he comes back, they see a slight movement of the shutter of the house, that as if somebody is actually watching them, which is also a little bit terrifying. I think that we can all relate to this time in childhood where our imaginations are wild, and the slightest thing can terrify us, and that we dare each other to do things that we think are super, super scary. It's quite a touching scene, actually. So that's the end of chapter 1. So chapter 2, Dill leaves them. It's the end of the summer. Remember, Dill only comes for the summers to Macomb. And first of all, the narrator is very, very miserable that Dill has gone. But then she realises that she does have something to look forward to because she's starting school. It's going to be her first day of school. Jem is the one who takes her to school on the first day. Remember, Atticus, their father, he's a working man. He's busy. He's older than them. He's not so involved in the kids' education. So he even thinks that Atticus may have paid Jem to take him. Jem makes it very clear to Scout that at school he is not to pay any attention. She is not to pay any attention and not to embarrass him. This is typical of older kids with younger kids in the school. They don't want their younger sibling to come and embarrass them. So he says that at home that they can play, but at school definitely not. She should make an effort not to embarrass him at all. Okay. The narrator enters the classroom, and she is introduced to their teacher, who's very, very young, Miss Caroline, and who's very different to the people from the town. And she is actually not from the town. She is from North Alabama, from Winston County. There is something political which makes this area very different from Macomb. It's not something I can fully explain, but basically she is an outsider. She is not one of the town, and the kids know it. And she starts by telling them about cats, a story about cats, that were having conversation with one another. This story is super, super boring for the class. And what it seems to be that the teacher doesn't realise is that the kids are just not interested in this type of learning. They are from a country area. Most of them help out in the house. They've chopped cotton and fed pigs since they were very, very little. And it says most of them were immune to imaginative literature, meaning that having a story read to them did nothing to them. It didn't make them imagine anything. Miss Caroline seems to think that's very nice, but the class have different ideas about what is something that's nice. So she writes on the blackboard the alphabet, and everyone knows the alphabet. Why do they know the alphabet? Because they failed first grade last year. Now, why have these children failed first grade? That's a very interesting question. First of all, we have not such a great education system. We don't have money. We have education system is something that needs money, and we're in very poor times here. And second of all, the householders, the people in Macomb, the inhabitants of Macomb, are simple farm folk, and they need their children to help them on the farms. So a lot of the times these children do not attend school regularly or at all because they have to help out with all the chores that are needed on the farm. This was part of life in the Deep South. Miss Caroline discovers that the narrator reads very, very well. Now, you'd think that she'd be happy that the narrator reads very well, but actually she's really not happy at all because it means she's got nothing to teach. But that really is like very uneducational, that the reason why she's in class is in order to do her job, which is to teach the alphabet. And if people know the alphabet, then she can't do her job. And so therefore the children have to stop learning in order for her to do her job. That's how Miss Caroline feels. So she says to the narrator, don't tell your father not to teach you anymore. And the narrator says it very simply that, my father hasn't taught her anything. He doesn't have time to teach her anything. She's what you call an autodidact scout. She has learned and herself how to read. She taught herself. So Miss Caroline's very kind of puzzled that nobody taught her how to read, and then she says very innocently that her brother says that she was born reading, okay, so there's some kind of there is a small argument between the two of them, and Miss Caroline doesn't accept the fact that this girl taught herself to read, and she once again says, tell your father not to read anymore. She actually says more than that. She says her father doesn't know how to teach. And that really, really sums up the education of the author. If already she comes in and she knows how to read and the teacher yells at her and makes her feel bad for being able to read and doesn't believe the fact that she taught herself, we get to see how really incompetent she is as a teacher. At the end of the school day, Jem asks Scout how her day was, and she tells him quite honestly, look, I got into trouble because I knew how to read. And Jem says, oh, don't worry about it. It's this teacher, she's got this new system, and it's called the Dewey Decimal System, a new system of reading, and she has to do it with you. And don't worry, because you don't really have to do a lot. You just have to do what she says. So now we have some explanation of what this Dewey Decimal System, this new system of teaching that Miss Caroline does with them, where she waves cards at them that's printed on them, words like cat, rat, man, and you. And they just have to sort of sit there. And then the Scout starts writing, and she can already write cursive writing, joined up, proper adult joined up writing. And Miss Caroline says, no, in first grade we don't write, we print. Print is without the letters being joined together. So, and now because the narrator's so young, she realizes she's got to blame someone, because obviously she's done something wrong that she's learnt to read and write. So who taught her how to write joined up writing? It was Calpurnia, which is interesting because we have here Calpurnia, who is the black servant, the cook, but she's quite an educated woman, and she knows how to read and write, and she actually teaches. She has taught Scout how to read and write. How to write with cursive print. Now we go back to the classroom. and it's lunchtime, and everybody gets their lunch out, except we have a kid called Walter Cunningham, who has no lunch with him. And we have a description of Walter Cunningham, which is his face told everybody in first grade he had hookworms. Hookworms is a type of parasite, okay, that these kids get. His absence of shoes told us how he got them. When you run around barefoot, you get hookworms. So he was wearing a clean shirt and neatly mended overalls. So Miss Caroline says, "Did you forget your lunch this morning?" And he looks straight ahead. She has to repeat the question again, and he says yes. He mumbles yes. So Miss Caroline gives him money, and she says, "Go and eat downtown. You can pay me back tomorrow." And Walter shakes his head and says, "No, thank you, ma'am." Miss Caroline has completely misunderstood the situation, and because she's not from the town, so they see this very embarrassing situation. She's trying to give him money. He refuses to take the money, and then the kids push Scout to be the mouthpiece to explain to Miss Caroline what the situation is. Okay, the situation is that Walter is a Cunningham, right? And a Cunningham, it's a family. It has the label of being that family. The Cunninghams have no money. They probably eat twice a day at the most, okay? But on the other hand, the Cunninghams never take anything that they can't pay back, okay? That is the motto of the family. Remember, we had the other, the criminals who were caught and they were hung because they belonged to a certain family. We have the mother of the narrator who has, she has heart disease that runs in the family. We have Atticus, who's related to almost everyone in the town. Everything in this town goes by family names and by the reputations of these families. We also have the Radleys as well. So this is what the Cunninghams are known for. They are a tribe, more than a family, and they never take anything off anybody that they can't pay back. Okay, so